Hi everyone. Good morning. Once again, I'm back, your host Anurag. I have my new guest today, Pam, who's a Chief Marketing Officer of, I would say, Planet's largest credit union, Navy Fed. So, hi Pam, welcome to my podcast.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely pleasure, Pam. I met Pam a couple of weeks back in an event, and I strangely popped up and I requested Pam that Pam, would you like to be in my podcast? And she was kind enough to spare 45 minutes from me. So absolutely thank you for that. Uh, Let me do a quick introduction, Pam. I know even if I don't do justice, but I'll take a stab at it. Quick introduction about you. So for my audience, Pam is a chief marketing officer again for Navy Fed. She focuses all initiatives on, I would say, across brand, CSR, sustainability, digital, and marketing communication at Navy Fed. Right? One quick nugget: Pam is married to her college sweetheart. That's something interesting I wanted to talk about. Like me, or like a lot of us, Pam also has a huge, long-standing experience in the agency business. Right? Pam started her career in the agency, and she grew to the top, becoming the CMO of Navy Fed. Uh, she worked in a bunch of them, starting BBDO to DDB. Some other things I wanted to cover about Pam very quickly. She sits on a bunch of board, right? I mean, obviously, it's very difficult to find Pam not working right now, right? She works 24/7 almost, and that's what I feel. She sits on the board of NAFQ Marketing and Growth Steering Committee, and she's a part of a couple of very two interesting, I would say, committees altogether, right? One headed by Accenture, another one by Google. So Pam is a part of the Accenture CMO community and Google Marketing Advisory Board for Finance. Right, Pam, I might not have done justice to your decade-long of experience, but I tried taking a stab at it. Please feel free to add something if I've missed.
That was great. Thank you. You also forgot to mention that I'm part of the MOB, the Mother of Boys group. And I share that because you shared with me, obviously, you do this podcast in honor of your mother. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And it speaks to my heart as a boy mom. So thank you for that full circle.
Thanks a lot, Pam. Absolutely. I mean, possibly that's something I wanted to cover in the next question, but that's great that you covered this. So this is something which is really personal to Pam, and hence she agreed to be on the podcast. Otherwise, she's very busy, guys. Right. So let's keep it very simple, conversational, right? And this is definitely not scripted, right? I'll ask you a bunch of questions. Let's start with one single question that keeps popping up to me every single day till I met you. That what keeps you going, right? Being a CMO of the largest credit union and running it, right? It's not easy. It's really difficult. So what keeps you going?
It's not easy, but I think very few of us actually have easy jobs right now, and particularly in the CMO role, because you're responsible for brand building and brand reputation as well as product and services. So it means that you are good at and proficient at and hired and really surround yourself with good people to help you do this that are performance marketers and experts at that, as well as brand building. And both of those are really critical, which keeps you very busy. As far as what keeps me going is, I think I am pride myself on being a lifelong learner. Our business is changing, our consumers changing, our industry's changing, and that's exciting. It's an exciting time to be part of that, but you really have to love the kind of embrace the change and be ready to learn through it.
I think summarize, Pam, change is the only mantra, right? I mean, you have to update yourself every single day, learn every single day. Being a CMO is very difficult, but also the way how uh, things are changing. Focus on Gen Zs, millennials, the way how we interact with a financial institution, bringing trust of our generation back to credit unions to enable that a credit union is a primary FI. That is something which is, I think, table stakes, right? And I think that's been your focus for long, how to elevate the the credit union movement, and altogether, obviously, position Navy Fed as a market leader, right? So I believe that that's not an easy job to definitely run, right? Uh, Followed by that, Pam, obviously you've spent like decades in the agency world. Followed by that, you've made your switch to credit unions. I want to ask a question, right? Not all of the agency people end up being the CMO of the largest credit union in the planet, right? Firstly, congratulations on that. And if you ask me, I'm really proud of what you're doing, right? Even I come from Accenture, and from an agency business, I'm really proud of what you're doing. So I want to ask you a question for my viewers, right? So what has your journey been, towards a leadership position, and what are the challenges that you've faced, right? Both, I would say, being as a leader and as a female leader, right? It's not easy to become a C level being a female leader, right? So what has been your journey and challenges?
I'll start with the first question about the transition. And I will tell you, and you will relate to this coming from a consulting background. The nice thing about an agency life or consulting life is there's always change, but in a positive way relative to the clients you work with. There's a diversity of clients that you work with, therefore different challenges. So it never is boring, and there's not any day that's like any other. You're doing everything from investing in your team, working with your team in training, leading teams, setting direction, doing strategic planning. So it's really a very broad job, but across different clients and industries. For me, I think that's probably why a lot of times people stay on the agency side because of that. And if you really are part of the what we call the maker economy, it is always creating work against good ideas, and that's really exciting. For me, the transition to client side was a little bit different because I made it late in my career. And really, it's because I knew Navy Federal Credit Union. They were my client. I worked on the team at the agency that brought our members of the mission to life. We introduced the brand with the expanded field of membership because at that time, Navy Federal knew to grow, you really had to appeal to a broader group. So they knew that marketing and creating a brand, not just advertising for products and services, was important. I knew them as my client. So that meant I already knew the culture and I knew the brand. And truthfully, I loved, maybe as a child of the 60s, I loved the whole credit union. It spoke to my heart. It was like, this is to be at a place that has a mission and a purpose
Yep.
built around who they serve. And this co-op of people that are coming together to do their banking was very powerful. So I knew the transition would be big because I obviously only work on Navy Federal now. And the operational knowledge I knew would be a gap for me. It's one thing to know about setting strategy and direction, but how to make it happen.
Yep.
And I will say Navy Federal has a great team, so it was great to come in and be a leader of that team and then connect with my peers, management council, throughout the credit union, really, with our channels, frontline. You heard me speak at the conference. I'm a big believer in the frontline. I spend time monthly listening to calls, as everyone does on our management council group, and also try to get to branches about that same frequency. And I'm always in awe of what our frontline does. It's easy from the marketing standpoint to talk about the service we offer. It's another thing when you see it live. And we really are a value brand, but our point of difference is about service. People come to us for the value that they get, also our values as a credit union, so value and values both, but they stay because of our service. So marketing that was really just an exciting opportunity for me, and I've been there. It'll be 7 years in May.
Wow, that's a long tenure, right? I mean, 7 years is not less, right? So you're steering the marketing agenda for Navy Federal. It's a difficult but interesting task, right? Obviously, I also believe in the same thing. Whatever I do, keep in mind of the end consumer, right? That's the most important thing. And the front line, I can't agree to it. I mean, it's a very personal thing. I mean, my father has done sales, right, for 35 years. He worked with PNG. He used to tell me the exact same thing. Unless and until you go and talk to the front line, you won't be able to go and achieve anything, right? marketing can be a strategy within the board. But in order to implement that, go and talk to frontline every single time. So yeah, it's absolutely very relatable, Pam. Absolutely right. Again, a follow up to that question, right? So we understand absolutely your journey. So what are the challenges that you've faced across being a female leader?
Well, the challenge is it really goes back to what I spoke about. What we're selling and what we're advertising and marketing and offering really is a package. So that means it's all got to be integrated. It's got to work together. It's got to complement each other. I really feel like marketing's number one job is building awareness for the brand and a brand that people want to bank with and be associated with. But the other objective is really just making sure that everything we do is building towards a trust in the brand. I think about all our activities as, are they trust builders? And the challenge sometimes gets to be there's different expectations from consumers. They do vary by age group. They also vary by just circumstances. And they just different, when you have a big group of members, there's a lot of diversity relative to where they're at in their life stage, but also how they approach their money, their finances, and their dreams. So making sure that what we're doing speaks to all of those, but in a way that's integrated and true to who we are and what we're offering. And by the same token, we compete with a lot of, as probably most of the listeners of this podcast do, we compete with a lot of big banks. We compete with fintechs. We compete with insurance companies.
Yep.
So, our share of voice in the space will be small compared to all those other folks, and so it's critical because of that everything we do builds on it and complements each other, because the sum of the parts has got to be bigger than just looking at each element separately. And then also the service part and the member experience part has all got to back that up. So that's the complexity of it.
Yep.
And it can take a while to build up to that perception that you want. And then one mishap can
Yeah.
drain a lot of that. So making sure that we try to do our very best for every one of our members is really critical.
Got it, Pam. That was a very well positioned answer, right? That absolutely makes sense for us. Uh, you being a leader for the past, again, for past so many years, for decades, right? So what has your leadership style been, right? So if you were to summarize it maybe within a minute or something, so how do you think one should approach a leadership, and at least what is your style?
Well, building a great team is imperative. I also have a quote from RGB on my desktop that I keep, and it really is a good reminder for, I think, many of us as leaders. And it says, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way to lead others to join you. And that quote speaks to me for a lot of great leadership traits, in that when it talks about fight for the things you care about, that means focus. You can't do everything, and everything can't be a fight. Focus on what matters. Focus on the metrics that matter. Focus on the tasks that matter. Make sure that what you're doing is strategic and really builds and complements each other. Do it in a way that leads others to join you. Also acknowledges there are very few things we can do alone. You need to have a team behind you and marching together against those same objectives and strategy. And the team is both your marketing team, which you're going to have generalists, you're going to have specialists as part of that team,
Yep.
as well as the front line that we've been talking about. And, when you think about an employer brand, we want to make sure that we're the right place for people to come to work. One of the things I'm really proud of for Navy Federal is we're on the best places to work list from Fortune. And it's because we've worked in and invested in our people. That said, to attract new people into the team, we've got to make sure that we're marketing ourselves as an employer, and as an employer of choice, with an employee value proposition that matters. So bringing all of that together, I think, is what allows the quote unquote leading others to join you. And that I always say it's a village, and our village is strong.
That's a good way to end the question, right? Absolutely, and it's relatable. I mean, when I go and interview for any consulting firm or any firm, I actually look up, right, is the firm is there in the Fortune list, yes or no. If not, then I'll become finicky. No, this is not the place I might want to work, right? And that's the way it works with everyone, right? Cool. Switching gears a bit to Navy Federal, right? So what are the typical, I would say, the priorities of the credit union right now? So if I were to ask you that question.
Our priorities are probably similar to the industry at large, and that is about growth. It's about healthy growth, and we talk about growth in terms of new membership as well as engagement from our current member base. We want to make sure that their next best product or service comes from us. And when I talked about changing the marketplace, we've seen this, and a lot of people have seen this in the context of satisfaction doesn't always drive loyalty.
Yeah.
People can show up, and you'll hear it from your members in terms of how happy they are, and they love you, and they recommend you. And then the next product or service, they're all looking at other things, and other breaks my heart. It's like, what happened? I thought we were in this relationship. So we're trying to make sure that we're focusing that on the drivers that matter and keep them engaged with us, and so that we are preferred and that we've earned their business. So growth is job one, both in new membership as well as engagement. And then the support for that, I don't call it the second job, but the support for that is building and earning that brand trust.
Yeah, I mean that's I think that is not, you cannot quantify how do you go and gain trust. There are very soft, it's a very softer perspective of gaining trust. It's a very difficult thing to do, but once you do, you have it with you, right? And that's a key for any financial institutions, be it a credit union or a large bank that we work with. We also work with a bunch of credit unions, for 40 plus credit unions. I think it's the same thing that we see, that the trust is the most important thing. And it's not only about just your financial institution, it's about everything. I mean, it's about everyday life, right? Unless you trust someone, you don't actually go and commit anything to it. I mean, you trusted me, and hence you thought of, okay, this guy came to me for a podcast, let me agree to this poor chap. So that's the reason you agreed to it. So yeah, that's very important. uh, my focus has been, Pam, across the decade. I have an experience of close to a decade of consulting, right? I do AI and data specifically towards helping banks and credit unions grow. Right now, my focus has been only credit unions. Exactly similar thing, helping credit unions grow responsibly using hyper personalized marketing, acquiring high propensity members, sticky members, right? So with this, I wouldn't call it a hype per se, but yeah, there's been enough talking about generative AI, where half of the world does not understand the difference of generative AI and AI. So I have a specific question to you. How do you think AI and data, right, is been used in AI Federal for two things? One, for uh, acquisition of high quality members, and second, for enhancing member experience. Basically, what you covered in the last question, I just want to get a flavor of how AI and data is on the center stage to improve whatever you're doing right now.
Well, we're further along in using our data than we are in AI. So I'll start with data. Data really for us is I don't know if you call it the gasoline or the elixir, but data really is the keys to the kingdom. It allows us to know you better, serve you better, and show up with the right type of products and the right type of questions and the right type of educational content, whatever it is you need. So data is really imperative. AI, for us, we're really just starting. We've got a couple of pilots underway, trying to make sure that we learn. One of our guiding principles, we've established guiding principles for how we would use AI, and one of them is that there's always a human involved. That, as I mentioned, service is a big part of our brand, so we've got to make sure that there's always a human between an AI application and the member. So that's job one. The other thing too we're doing right now with our AI and our first pilot is looking at how we can aggregate data that we were sharing to our member service reps, a lot about information on products and services as well as situations. And us, like probably lots of people, the member service rep has thousands of pages of information online that they're trying to get through when they are servicing our members. And AI can help us aggregate some of that content and get them to a response faster that's customized for that member. So that's our first application, and it's really about, it's not people sometimes will say is, hey, I'm going to replace humans. I think it will just make humans better
Yeah,
and more efficient. And in this example, it's really just helping them get to that information they need on behalf of a member in a quick and concise fashion.
absolutely, Pam. Right? I mean, when Google came in, everyone was scared that everyone will be replaced. Right? Now, when generative AI is there, so this is one of the very, I would say, interesting use cases or very commonly implemented use cases across all financial institutions that I work. Right? How do you go and make information retrieval much easier using generative AI? Because that I would say speeds your action very quick and improves member experience. Members don't have to wait in a long queue to get answers. And I would say, Pam, going forward, obviously there needs to be a human in the loop, is what we call, right? Generative AI might not be still fully prepared for a consumer facing application right now because humans need to be there. But going forward, I mean, what I think maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, uh, you might be also able to expose a well-trained, ethical, compliant generative AI in front of your consumers, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to start replacing the age-old bots with bots enabled by generative AI, right? That's a change that needs to come in. Right? So yeah, so I understand your priorities, and I think that aligns really well with even the bigger financial institutions that you compete against. I mean, compete is a very wrong word to use because that's not what credit unions do. But in a way, the big guys of Wall Street, right? Uh, that's really helpful. One very subtle question. So, what makes you stick to the credit union space? I know that you gave me an answer that this is very close to what you want. This movement is very close. But any instances that you want to bring up that makes you stick to the credit union space specifically?
Well, part of it is that commitment, as I mentioned, to just the values that we have, which is shared. And this purpose driven branding is very emotional for me and very meaningful. So at the end of the day, and we all have hard days and lots of things to do, that does fill up my, if you will, love tank in the context of feeling like we really are making a difference. I also am incredibly blessed in that when I came to Navy Federal, it's a 90-year-old brand, and
Yep.
service really has been baked into their DNA, as it is for many credit unions, since day one. So I don't have to talk about why it's important. Our team gets it. And they're already, and our team, all the employees, regardless of what they do, get that orientation, how the member really matters. Our tagline is our members are the mission. That reminds people, why are we here? What is the North Star? And that keeps me motivated to do the right thing and stay at what I'm doing and keep working on it.
Sounds good. Absolutely. I know we are running on top of the hour almost. So let's wrap up very quickly. I know you have to jump into the next meeting for sure. I understand your calendar. So a couple of last questions, right? One is, would you like talking about a few successful initiatives and projects that you've led and you are specifically proud of at Navy Federal?
I'm really proud. I know this sounds a little bit redundant, but I'm proud that members can trust us and that we have earned that, and that what we do continues to put deposits in that trust bank. So I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the teams that we've built and just how much they get the mission and the commitment. That's not anything I did, that was there when I got there, but being able to amplify that and transition that into our employer brand proposition has been very exciting. Working with our product and service teams is always exciting and fun, and just keeping up with that is great. And so I'm we'll continue to do that, and it's been a good gig.
Interesting, right? So let's wrap up this podcast with one glaring question, right? Obviously, uh, now is not the best market situation, but it's improving. Rates, we don't know when the rates will go down. This like liquidity risk, net interest margins are compressing, etc. Right? But still, where do you think is the credit union movement going to, or rather, moving ahead? Because I mean, Navy Fed is a giant, right? But looking at the smaller credit unions, I mean, I was reading somewhere that maybe in the next 5 years there will be 30% credit unions who won't exist because of mergers and acquisition. And by hearing that, my heart cries. Right? We have to go and collaborate, go and join our forces, right, to make this work, make this movement work, right? So where do you think is the credit union movement, Pam, heading towards? And we as proponents of that, how can we contribute towards it?
You nailed it. In a lot of ways, this environment is our time to shine. People care about our values, which at maybe the greedy times of the 80s, maybe they cared less about that. So I think our founding as a nonprofit serving our members really is a point of difference, and that matters to individuals. It matters to all adults, but a lot of younger adults really care about that, and they're voting with their dollars and their banking. The second part of it is how do we all survive as part of that is, this is our time to shine, but we've got to tell our story, the community that we're in. I loved your point about partnerships because I think the more we work together, we will help each other. And that's why, we show up at industry conferences, which is why it's part of when you gave my bio, I sat there and thought somebody listening to this is going to think like, what the hey, why does she do that? And it's because of the community, and it's because I want to both give back and learn from. And I think credit unions as a whole, the more we do that for each other, the better off we will be individually as well as an industry.
Absolutely, Pam. That's a good, I would say, earmark to how things will move. Partnership is a key. I think partnership between, or rather, collaboration between credit unions as well as collaborations of fintechs and credit unions to make credit unions to move to the next level. Uh, be way more smarter, compete against the giants, the fintechs, right? I won't call it a threat, but yeah. So it's time to pull our sleeves up, ma'am. So by this we quickly finish our podcast. But thanks a lot. Thanks to you for making your time that on an early morning on a Friday, right? That wasn't easy. So thanks a lot for that. I appreciate everything.
Thank you.